These are live pictures on the left-hand side of their television screens that they can see at the moment. Remember, the coverage inside of the courtroom is not allowed today. These are all visuals that are coming in from outside the courtroom, but you can get a sense of the kind of security arrangements that are in place at the moment. You can see a lot of security officials there in the corridor leading up to the courtroom. The Secret Service, as we have been pointing out, has been roped in as well. They're going to escort Donald Trump to when he appears before the judge today. Then the indictment will be unsealed and the specific charges against him will in fact be known to Donald Trump as well as to the rest of the public. After which Donald Trump, as his legal team has pointed out already, will plead not guilty in this matter. Donald Trump is going to address his supporters at 5:45 a.m. Indian Standard Time. That is tomorrow morning. It will be tonight in the U.S. Once he flies back to Florida. At least that's what has been pointed out by his team. Meenakshi Narula, coming back to you now. This whole episode that we are seeing unfold, for any other person, perhaps, this could have come as a matter of grave embarrassment that they are being presented before a court. Criminal charges are being pronounced against them. But for Donald Trump, he is brazening it out. Is that the hallmark of Donald Trump? Is that what he is as a person?
Well, Donald Trump has always liked attention. He's always liked to be the center of attention, whether it's good attention or bad attention. This is something he's always fed on.
So you
he has
I think that's exactly
ego.
right.
I don't think you can remove Donald Trump from his ego, and he'll make use of it. He'll make use of it to raise money. He'll make use of it with his base. So he'll get extended mileage out of it, no matter what. But it's interesting to see that the entire Republican Party has sort of, it's almost like a race to support him. Donald Trump still wields a very powerful hand over his party. He's got a very devoted base, and people have their eye on his base. And so he has a way of diminishing people, lying Ted Cruz, low energy Bush, sanctimonious, DeSantis. He has a way of calling people names that stick and just sort of completely demoting them in a way. And so they are all a little bit petrified of him because he can sort of, with his words, just turn a whole mob against them. So I think they've all sort of lined up against him lined up for him. They've all rushed to support him. Now, it'll be very interesting once they're on the campaign trail and they have to, and they're campaigning against him as president, once they start to sort of throw their hat in the ring, how that plays out.
But as of today, John Bartlett, I want to come back to you. We are seeing a crowd of Trump supporters outside the Manhattan court. But after what we saw on the 6th of January, the insurrection, do you think his supporters will be wary of any sort of violent acts now?
I think you found exactly the right parallel there, Maha. I was thinking about that this morning. One of the other things, and Meenakshi did a nice job of explaining some of the ways that Donald Trump is very unique as a political candidate. One of the very unique things about him is that he uses that power he has over his supporters to bring them together and to point them at whatever entity he sees as standing in his way. And in January 6th, that was the United States Congress that was gathering to confirm the election of Joe Biden as president. And Donald Trump said to his supporters, come to Washington on January 6th. It's going to be wild. He got up in front of them, on the National Mall and said, go to the Capitol, make your voice heard. And the result of that was the January 6th events that everyone now is very familiar with. He's done the same thing here. He's doing it in a little bit different context. New York is ready for this. The New York police, the other officials there are ready for whatever might take place. And I don't expect violence today. And I also think, and I haven't seen all the pictures, but just from the pictures that I've seen on your network and elsewhere, it's not the kind of huge crowd that you saw on January 6th. I think Meenakshi is exactly right that there's a lot of people in the Republican Party that regard Trump's base as an essential part of their support. But we also have to see the way in which that base is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. The more that it sees about, what January 6th really was, the more that it sees as leaks and information come out about all of these criminal investigations, who Donald Trump is, and contemplate the question of who do they really want as their Republican standard bearer in 2024, I think you're going to see that support shrink despite Trump's best efforts. And we'll see what that ultimately does within the Republican Party, because, of course, in the United States, before you can face the voters and run against a Democrat in November, you've got to face the voters in your own party. And that's where Trump still has a tremendous amount of support. And he may very well survive that primary election for 2024. But then coming in front of independent and Democratic voters, folks that aren't getting all of their news out of the right-wing news machine, but are understanding that, somebody who's been indicted, somebody who's been investigated, somebody with all this, photographic proof and apparently video proof that we're seeing regarding handling of confidential and classified federal government documents after his presidency, it has a profound problem when it comes to going to those voters and saying, you know what, let me run the country for another 4 years.
John, I want some, issues or points clarified here with regards to the processes. Can you help us understand, first of all, typically how long will it take today for Donald Trump in court? Some of the processes we already know. His fingerprints will be taken, mugshot may or may not be taken, and then he'll be presented before the judge. Also, CNN reports that he was taken in custody. Is that procedural?
It is. Today's piece of the process, the arraignment, is actually usually fairly short. I think it's going to be a bit extended because of the kind of person that Trump is, the attention that this is getting, the fact that, as you pointed out, the Secret Service is also part of this. While he's going through all of the different offices within the court that you go through an arraignment, he's still under the protection of the U.S. Secret Service. So that adds a different dimension from any other defendant going through the same proceedings. But today, an ordinary arraignment tends to be pretty short. The charges are read. The defendant is given the opportunity to plead guilty or not guilty. Of course, we understand President Trump is going to plead not guilty, not surprisingly. But then this begins another longer process, which will be, moving the case towards trial. One of the unfortunate things, and here I'm speaking as a lawyer in the United States, folks watch these 1-hour television shows about the law and get the sense the cases happen very quickly and that things wrap up kind of by the time the last commercial break comes. And in fact, what we're seeing right now is that this indictment has been the product of months of witness after witness after witness coming to the grand jury to testify. And it's going to begin a process that's going to last additional months and years going forward as the case moves towards trial and all of the processes of discovery go down. Meanwhile, in parallel, in other jurisdictions like Georgia, like the federal investigation regarding confidential documents, there may be additional indictments, additional procedures that move forward elsewhere. We're going to watch all of those shake out in the weeks and months ahead.